Brewster here, a new episode of Scales and Tales, and this is part 2 of Modal Pockets. And this is an extension of the original, pentatonic pockets episode I put together a couple weeks ago. And the basic concept in that lesson first appeared in the Billy Gibbons Soloing Secrets episode. But in the original, like part 1 of these Modal Pockets, I noticed I had a lot of feedback, a lot of requests for a part 2. It seemed like a lot of viewers out there were really happy and making some progress with this. So I wanted to immediately put this together and follow that with part 1. And include, some of the ideas in this second installment. And we're going to basically revisit, the key of E. And we're actually going to use, that same position that we were playing with before. But we're going to approach things in a completely different way in this lesson. We're going to look at the modes using a parallel view. So we're going to stay in the key of E, and then mutate the scale form that we used in part 1. And we're going to physically change the notes to move through Dorian and Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, Locrian. So just as a reminder too, I did have a lesson in Guitar Player magazine. This would have been August of 2017 with Melodic Journey, which was a tribute to Neil Schon. And in that lesson, I discussed, these modal pockets. So if you want to dive deeper, don't forget about that Guitar Player lesson. Before we dive in, I want to revisit a couple things that are very important from part 1, and that's going to help anybody starting this video, you're going to begin in the right place. So the first image I'm going to share here is we're revisiting, E Ionian, and this is the scale formula for Ionian, which is also known as the major scale. So this lesson is going to revolve around the key of E, and it's very important to understand this formula or spelling of the scale, because we're going to take the scale, to start with, but then we're going to start changing and mutating the notes in the scale to create all these different modes. So here's E Ionian, or E major. Next up, I wanted to revisit the layout of modes in the key of E, and this is important for everybody to understand. So there are 7 different modes, and we're going to hit all these modes in this episode. But this episode's radically different than part 1, so if you're expecting me to revisit the same thing we already did, that's not the case. We're going to shake things up, but it's very important that you understand this before you move forward. So here's the layout of modes from E major. Next up, we're going to classify these modal scales, and I didn't do this in the first episode. I did see some people that were talking about this in the comments section. I just hadn't made it there yet, but now we're there. So we're going to talk about grouping these 7 scales or modes into different, classifications. So there are 3 major family modes, there are 3 minor family modes, and 1 that fits in diminished. So the 3 major family modes are Ionian, Lydian, and Mixolydian. And then the 3 minor scale modes are Aeolian, Dorian, and Phrygian, and the diminished mode is Locrian. But here's an image showing you like this grouping, major, minor, and diminished as far as these modes are concerned. So first up, once again, is Ionian. We're in the key of E. So E Ionian, and we looked at this in part 1. And as far as the opening jam, I actually was using, E major 7 right here. You heard it move back to like an E major 6 to E major, and I'm really just moving from that D sharp to C sharp to B as far as the chords right there. Something like that. But we're actually going to use this chord right here. That's E major 7, kind of an unusual fingering, but I like that, spelling of that chord. We've got 3 fretted notes and 3 open strings. A tasty E major, 7 fingering right there, but that's E major 7 right there. And then let's revisit that scale we used in part 1, but the first thing I want to do to shake things up is we're going to target the 7th first, and we're going to do this with every single one of these modes. That way your ear really picks out what the 7th is in these different modes. So here, we're playing with the major 7, that E to D sharp, and then back to E. And then I want you to climb up that 1 octave E major or E Ionian right here. Just like that. So root, 7th, root, and then play the scale, and then end on the root right there at the top. And then you can go back down. We're going to do that over this chord, and you can hear how that Ionian and major 7th chord match up perfectly like this. Really bright and jazzy. again, practice that scale like this. So you really get an earful of that 7th. And then you also want to practice that scale, over that E major 7 chord. So once again, here's the fretboard diagram showing you the scale. And keep in mind, the very next example is going to deviate from what we did in part 1. So, pay attention to what we're doing right here, because right here is the only connecting link between, part 1 and part 2. After this, everything's going to be different. So we're going to lock on to the major family of modes first. So we just did Ionian, and now we're going to visit Lydian. And there's only one note different between the major scale, Ionian, and the Lydian mode. And that's the 4th. So the major scale has a regular 4, Lydian has a raised 4th. That's also known as a sharp 11. And all I'm going to do here, I'm going to keep the same chord we had for E major Ionian. I'm going to play that E major 7, but I'm also going to flirt with the sharp 11, or that raised 4th, right there, and that's going to be A sharp. So I'm really just going to move back and forth. And I'm just hinting at that Lydian flavor right there. But you can think of that as an E major sharp 11 if you wanted to, just like that. And then we're moving back to that E major 7. Like that. Just to give it that Lydian kind of twist. And then the only thing that's changing over here as far as the scale, everything's the same except for the 4th. Like I mentioned, there's only one note different between Ionian and Lydian. So everything here is the same. It's just when you get to that 4th note, normally it would be an A, but in Lydian that's going to be an A sharp, and there's your raised 4th. Right? And then over that chord you can hear Lydian. There's that A sharp. The important thing there is we're playing, E Lydian, so it's not A sharp anything, it's E. But that, raised 4th is the telltale Lydian note. Very strong note. So here's an image showing the fretboard diagram with this E Lydian, fingering. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show Ionian first for about 3 minutes. I'm sorry, 3 seconds, not 3 minutes. I'm going to show Ionian first for 3 seconds. And then I'm going to follow that with the Lydian, fretboard diagram. And this little, cheap animation I'm getting ready to show here, you can actually see the action of that note moving, from A to A sharp. And I'm going to continue this kind of visual throughout this lesson. That way you can see what's changing, like where the shift is, as far as the notes from that major scale shifting to Lydian. So check this out. Now we're going to be converting E Ionian to E Mixolydian, and once again there's only one note different between Ionian and Mixolydian, and that's the 7th. So in E Ionian we had a major 7th, which was D sharp, and then in E Mixolydian we have a flat 7, which is D natural. And as far as the chord, I'm really just targeting E7 right here, which is very appropriate. And I'm also kind of flirting with the 6th, that C sharp right there. Groove, kind of thing. And then as far as the modal pocket here, everything's going to be the same, except, we're going to change the 7th. So instead of targeting D sharp, you want to target D natural right there. And don't forget, at the top of the scale, there's also a D natural waiting right there. Normally in Ionian or Lydian, that would be a D sharp, but here in Mixolydian, we're playing D natural. Something like this. F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D natural, and E. And then over that little looped kind of jam, you can definitely hear Mixolydian pop out like this. here's a fretboard diagram showing you what happened when we changed from E Ionian to E Mixolydian. And once again, I'm going to show that little animation of Ionian changing to Mixolydian so you can really see the shift. Right, next up, we're going to change E Ionian to E Aeolian. So we're going to change the major scale to the relative minor scale. And to do this, we're going to have to change or alter 3 notes from the major scale. So E major, or Ionian, once again, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, and E. And then the conversion to Aeolian, we're going to change the 3rd, the 6th, and the 7th. So we're going to have to change 3 notes. And that conversion happens right here. So there's, E, there's F sharp. We're going to grab this G right there, which is modified. Then we're going to grab that A and B, and we're also going to grab that C note right there, which is one of the modified notes. And also that D right there, which is modified. So you can see compared to the major scale, there's the relative natural minor scale, Aeolian. Just a little twist, even though there's 3 notes different, but a twist to that scale. And then as far as the chord, I'm really just kind of playing around with E minor 7 back here. But then I'm also playing around with that C, which is the flat 6, to B. So it's like E minor 7, and then an E minor flat 6 to E minor. And then you can definitely hear Aeolian pop out over that track like this. Here's an image showing you the fretboard diagram, and once again, there's the animation kind of moving from major to natural minor, which is Aeolian. But check this out. And next up, we're going to convert E Ionian to E Dorian. So there's only 2 notes different between Ionian and Dorian, and that's the 3rd and the 7th. So we're going to leave that 6th alone like we were playing with for Aeolian. But E Dorian is going to basically be spelled like this. So here's E major, Ionian. And then to convert that to E Dorian, we're going to change, the 3rd. So we're going to change that G sharp to G right there. And then we're moving over, there's A and B, and then C sharp right there. And then there's your D natural. Changing the 3rd and the 7th compared to the major. And then as far as the chords here, I'm just keeping that E minor 7 we had earlier. But then the 2nd chord, I'm just playing E minor 6. It's a little twist to what we had for Aeolian, because Aeolian was that. And then Dorian's going to have that, natural 6 right there. So E minor 7, then E minor 6 to E minor. And you can definitely hear Dorian pop out like this. And you can just keep jamming, obviously, with that scale pocket and playing with that chord progression. But here's an image showing the fretboard diagram with the Ionian to Dorian shift. Next up, we're going to convert E Ionian to E Phrygian, and to do that, we're going to have to modify 4 notes: the 2nd, the 3rd, the 6th, and the 7th. So if we take E Ionian and play a flat 2, flat 3, flat 6, and flat 7, then you've converted, Ionian to Phrygian. And then the side-by-side walkthrough, here's E Ionian, and then, Phrygian has a flat 2 and a flat 3, so F sharp and G sharp are both F and G now. So here's E, F, and G. A and B are the same notes. And then we're also changing, C sharp and D sharp are shifting back to, C and D natural. So there's your 1 octave, E Phrygian modal pocket right here. E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E. And as far as what I'm looping or kind of, demonstrating the scale with, I'm really just playing E minor 7, but I've added the F, that flat 9 right there, which is also the flat 2. And that really brings out that Phrygian, tonality overall. And I'm ending that kind of, progression with just E minor 7. So I'm moving between E minor 7 flat 9 and E minor 7. And when I loop that and play the modal pocket over the top of it, you're totally going to hear Phrygian like this. Interesting, you can kind of use that flat 2, to kind of create some dissonance and some pull, between your melodies and licks and stuff. Really interesting mode for sure. But then here's an image showing that fretboard diagram and the shift from Ionian to Phrygian. Last but not least, we're going to convert E Ionian to E Locrian. So we're taking one of the prettiest, happiest sounding scales of music and converting it into one of the nastiest and darkest scales, Ionian to Locrian. And to do this, we're going to have to change everything except for the first and the fourth, or the root and the fourth. Everything else is going to be flat. So flat 2, flat 3, flat 5, flat 6, and flat 7. And then the side-by-side comparison, here's E Ionian. And keep in mind, we got a flat 2, flat 3, flat 5, flat 6, and flat 7. So E Locrian is going to look and sound like this. And there's your E, F, G, A, B flat, C, D, and E. Or root, flat 2, flat 3, 4, flat 5, flat 6, flat 7, root. Flat 5 in there too, which is really cool. And as far as the chord, or what I'm going to loop here, I'm just going to play with an E minor 7 flat 5 right there. And I'm also playing with like this E flat 5 to an E7 flat 5. Something like that. You're totally going to hear Locrian pop out like this. Fretboard diagram showing you that conversion from Ionian to Locrian. That's going to wrap this episode of Scales and Tales with part 2 of these modal pockets. And I am, kind of interested in maybe exploring this again in the future. I want to get back to what I originally had planned. But depending on the feedback and the response from this, I can definitely dive into a part 3 and continue. We could look at modes, from harmonic minor and melodic minor. We could shake up these major scale modes some more. So there's a lot more to this. But I definitely wanted to give you both, part 1 and part 2 to give you some things to play around with and think about. And then if I revisit this in the future, I'll supply you with some more ideas and approaches and ways of using this information. So anyway, leave some feedback and comments. Please subscribe to Night Lessons, and I'll be back before you know with more content and material. Thank you.